sisters and brothers, for the time that's ours to share together this Lord's Day with your prayers and the Holy Spirit's help. I'd like to preach Between a Rock and a Hard Place, Part 2. Between a Rock and a Hard Place, Part 2. According to U.S. Census demographer Jonathan Vespa, as of the latest data collected in 2015, more than 1 in 3 millennials live at home with their parents. While there are many factors that contribute to this unprecedented trend in modern record-keeping history, one obvious major reason why this is the case is the continued fallout and consequences of the Great Recession of 2008. Markets tumbled, jobs and careers tumbled, wages tumbled. The prospect of attaining early markers of success, like a full-time job, financial independence, the purchase of a home, and marriage, even for those with college degrees, tumbled. And almost a decade later, these things continue to have an effect economically and socially. You see, millennials were sold the idea that if they just went to college and took out an average of $37,000 in student loans, that they too could become successful, could even succeed the success of previous generations. But alas, this promise millennials took to the bank has come back literally and figuratively marked with insufficient funds. As such, without intending to take a cheap shot at millennials, as that has become a popular thing to do these days, but attempting to call out and draw attention to the real problems that we face and to facilitate better intergenerational understanding, millennials have become known as the boomerang generation, simply because they have done what they were told to do. They went away. They achieved, they educated themselves, they set themselves up for success. Due to factors outside of their control, they have had to return home and try to figure out what success is and how to claim this Western promise of education in new ways. While there are many in the sanctuary today who do not identify as one of these millennials or as a member of the boomerang generation, their experience is not entirely a new one. I think it's safe to say that many of us know what it's like to have to go back when going back was not in our plan. This is where we find Jacob today, as we pick back up studying his life. As we have learned over this past month, Jacob has lived up to his name. Jacob has tricked and connived and deceived his way through life. He'd even tricked his own twin brother Esau out of both birthright and blessing. And because he did that, Jacob had to leave home, as his brother was tired of his tricks and wanted to kill him for stealing what was his. So Jacob's parents sent him to his mother's homeland of Haran and told him to find a wife there, to start a new life, to work hard, and to live free from his past. Last week we saw how this trickster got tricked, and how he had to deal with his own disappointment as he discovered the morning after his wedding that he had been duped into marrying the ugly cross-eyed sister after working 7 years for the pretty one. We learned that even though Jacob had been tricked, even though Jacob had been wrong, he stayed right there. He remembered his love for Rachel, and he worked another 7 years to marry the one he truly loved. And once he finally married her, the Bible says in Genesis chapters 30 to 32 that Jacob made a good life for himself. Jacob made himself rich. He had a lot of children. He bred a huge flock. Jacob had it all. By all accounts, Jacob was truly living into the promise that God had made him between the rock and the hard place the first time that we explored sermonically just 2 Sundays ago. And And now that Jacob had it all, now that he had done what his mama told him to do, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 31 verse 3, in the middle of his workday tending to his flocks, that the Lord interrupted him. And the Lord said to him, return to the land of your ancestors and to your kindred, and I will be with you. Now you've got to be kidding me. There wasn't anything at home for Jacob, at least nothing good. He left home because his brother hated him. He left home because his brother wanted to kill him. He left home because there was nothing there for him. He left home because that's what his parents told him to do. Jacob left home, and when he got up out of there, it was there that God made a promise to him. That God would be with him wherever he went in his new life on his own, which did not involve going back home, or so he thought. As we have learned these past few weeks, the path to God's promise is not an easy one. The path to God's promise isn't always a bed of roses. Rather, the path to God's promise is often winding. It's crooked, it's uncertain, and sometimes it's anything but easy. And the same is true for us. God's promise is not just for the good times of our lives. God's promise is also for those bad times. God's promise is also for those hard times. God's promise still exists even between the rock and the hard place. The thing about God's promise is that God's promise is not just a one and done. There is always more in store. But God's promise doesn't stop when these millennials who have become known as the boomerang generation graduated from college. God's promise doesn't stop when we reach certain milestones in life, like getting married or buying a house or having a certain amount of money in the bank. God's promise doesn't even stop at retirement. As long as you have breath in your body, there is still more of God's promise for you to have and to experience. There are lessons we can continue to learn from Jacob's life about the promise of God. The first is which God will return you to the place of promise. Notice here in the text that once God tells Jacob to go home, that he does. And after a long ordeal with his father-in-law Laban in chapter 31 that I encourage you to read about when you get home, Jacob sets off toward his home. Because he didn't leave home the last time under the best of circumstances, you remember Esau wanted to kill him. Jacob sent gifts ahead of himself in an attempt to lessen the blow of him, the trickster, the deceiver, coming back home. And here at the beginning of our text today, upon his arrival at the Yabok River, verse 22 and 23 record that Jacob sent his 2 wives, his 2 maids, his 11 children, and everything he had across that river. He sent his whole life across that river and left everything but himself. And now Jacob was alone. Between his new life and his old life, between where he went and where he is now being sent. And even though Jacob had a promise from God, even though he did what his parents told him to do, even though he tried to make something of himself, Jacob still found himself alone again between a rock and a hard place. Sometimes, every now and then, God has to take us back to that place where we first met him. God has to take us back where we first heard his voice and received his promise for our lives. God has to return us to that place. And we like to romanticize it by singing, take me back, dear Lord. But going back isn't always cute. But it is necessary. Well, there's something powerful about returning to that place. And no, for my Sunday school saints in the sanctuary, it wasn't Bethel where God first came to Jacob. But it was a place where he had nothing to comfort him and where he was all alone again. And there's something powerful about returning from whence we came to prepare us for where God is taking us next. The reality is returning to that in-between place can be scary. Returning to that in-between place is a dark, difficult, and dangerous experience. But you will remember that in-between place is where God shows up. And that brings us to the second lesson that we can learn from Jacob's life, that God will not only return you to the place of promise, but God will run into you in your perplexity. The text says in verse 24, that after Jacob sent everything he had across the river, after he was alone there in the dark between the known and the unknown, that someone came and wrestled with him until daybreak. And when that someone did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip side. Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. You see, my brothers and my sisters, we serve a God who runs into us in our perplexity. We serve a God who wrestles with us in our in-between places. I know this upsets some of your theological senses. This upsets some of your nice and neat doctrine that God is untouchable, that God is undefeated, that God just wants to hold us and comfort us. While all of that is true, you also have a God who will wrestle with you. That makes me happy. I don't know about you, but I don't need a God who's just clean and dignified and bougie all the time. I like this kind of God that we see here in Genesis chapter 32. This God who can get down with me. I like this God who will meet me, who will come and who will be with me in the dark, difficult, and dangerous places of my life, who will even put his hands on me and make me deal with some things I ordinarily wouldn't deal with. I know it's not the most glamorous place. I know it's not the most desired place in our Christian journey, but it is a real place. And it is a necessary place on the path of attaining God's promise for our lives. When God runs into us in our perplexity, although it may not feel good, although we may feel like we don't know what in the world is going on, when God runs into us, we've got to deal with some things. When God runs into us, we've got to work some things out. When God runs into us, we've got to let him touch even the most hidden parts of our lives. When God runs into us, although it may hurt us at times, in the end, it's going to bless us. And I know it's rough. I know it's tough. But you've got to hold on and wrestle that thing out with God. You've got to deal with yourself. You've got to deal with your past. Because like James Baldwin said, you can't fix what you won't face. Because if you don't, you won't experience the next phase of God's promise. So you got to get that tough Jacob spirit down on the inside of you. And you got to make up in your mind that you're going to stick it out. That you're going to stay right there. That you're going to hold on and not let go until it blesses you. When you hold on and when you don't let go, God will not only return you to your place of promise, God will not only run into you in your perplexity, but thirdly and finally, I'm about to get out of your way, God will rename you in your persistence. The text says in verse 27 that after Jacob decided that he wasn't going to let go until he blessed him, the one who wrestled with Jacob asked Jacob a question. He asked Jacob, what is your name? And Jacob said, Jacob. The one wrestling with Jacob said, you shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have struggled or striven with God and with humans, and you have prevailed. See, church family, no longer would Jacob's name define him. No longer would Jacob's past control him. No longer would Jacob be known as the one who even in his mother's womb supplanted, and throughout his childhood and adolescence tricked and deceived his own twin brother. But now, because God wrestled with him, and because Jacob held on and trusted the process, Jacob's name was changed from trickster. Jacob's name was changed from deceiver. Jacob's name was changed from supplanter. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. One who has struggled with God and has prevailed. That's what we celebrate every first Sunday here at the communion table. We celebrate a God who chooses to limit his power. And simultaneously, in the fullness of his power, comes to us. We celebrate a God who fulfills his promise to humanity, who wrestles with us to redeem us so that we are no longer defined by our past, no longer defined by what the world or by what our families or by what everybody else calls us. We celebrate a God who renames us. That's what we celebrate at this table every first Sunday. Well, Philippians chapter 2 tells us that Jesus, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing. Took on the very nature of a servant. Was made in human likeness. And being found in the appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death. Even death on a cross. So therefore God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name. And because Jesus did all that, because Jesus came down, Because Jesus was born of a virgin named Mary. Because Jesus led a sinless life. Because Jesus performed a ministry of miracles. Because Jesus taught us how to live. Because Jesus brought God's justice in God's kingdom. Because Jesus died on a Good Friday. And because Jesus got up early on Easter Sunday morning, the Father gave Jesus that great name. That name at which every knee should bow. In heaven, on earth, and under the earth. God the Father gave Jesus that name at which every tongue should confess. That name that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And because the Father gave Jesus that to hear.